Hello, everybody. Welcome to Science Abounds, Science at Home, where we will discover home lab magic. In this channel, we will be performing experiments demonstrating scientific principles, concepts, and reactions in chemistry, biology, microbiology, microscopy, and even molecular biology. Welcome to my channel. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Science Abounds, Science at Home, where we will discover home lab magic. In today's video, we're going to explore the principle of Le Chatelier's principle. This is an important fundamental principle in chemistry, and everyone should know the basics behind Le Chatelier's principle. And we're going to be doing two reactions to demonstrate the principle. And so what is Le Chatelier's principle? Well, in a nutshell, it's all about equilibrium. Le Chatelier's principle states that if a system of equilibrium is disturbed by a change in conditions such as pressure, temperature, concentration, the system will adjust itself to restore that equilibrium. In simpler terms, when a chemical reaction is subjected to an external stress, it will shift in such a way that it minimizes the effect of that stress. An example of Le Chatelier's principle is the blood buffer system, whereby an increase in carbon dioxide, CO2 for example, during hyperventilation, more CO2 causes the reaction to shift right, and more hydrogen ions are produced. Blood becomes more acidic, and therefore the kidneys are then kicked into gear to excrete more hydrogen ions or resorb more hydrogen bicarbonate in order to restore that pH balance. In today's video, in this lab, we're going to be looking at two reactions demonstrating Le Chatelier's principle. The first reaction will be reacting potassium chromate with sulfuric acid. When potassium chromate reacts with sulfuric acid, a redox reaction occurs where the chromate ions gets reduced and the sulfate ions get oxidized. In reaction 2, we're going to be reacting cobalt chloride with hydrochloric acid, concentrated hydrochloric acid. And when cobalt chloride is dissolved in hydrochloric acid, an interesting ligand exchange occurs, and the cobalt ions in cobalt chloride will react with chloride ions from the hydrochloric acid to form a complex ion, and this causes the color of the solution to change depending on the concentration of acid and cobalt ions present. So let's take a closer look. What chemicals do we need in order to do these two reactions? You're going to need 0.1 mole potassium chromate. You're going to need 3 molar sulfuric acid. which is done by dissolving 1 part of sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid, and 5 parts of water. You will also need concentrated hydrochloric acid, 1 molar solution of sodium hydroxide, and a solution of 0.1 moles cobalt chloride. If you check out my description, in my video description, I list all my resources where I get all my chemicals, glassware, everything I use for my experiments and for these videos can be obtained from the resources that I list in my video description. So check them out if you want to yourself perform this experiment in your own home and follow along with me. So let's begin reaction 1. So we're going to do reaction 1, reacting potassium chromate with sulfuric acid. In the interest of time, I pre-made the solutions, which I have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour about 3 mLs of the potassium chromate into a test tube, like so. Potassium chromate is yellow in water due to the chromate ion. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the sulfuric acid into test tube 1, into that potassium chromate solution. So like I said, I've got this dissolved, diluted already. So I'm just going to add dropwise the sulfuric acid, and let's see what happens. I'm going to give it a little mix. So it's already changed color to an orange color. So potassium chromate reacts with sulfuric acid, and this leads to the formation of potassium dichromate, which has an orange color. Remember, chromate ions are yellow, produce a yellow solution, but dichromate ions produce an orange color in solution. The chromate ion in the yellow solution is in equilibrium with the dichromate ion in an acidic solution. In the presence of hydrogen ions, the chromate is converted to dichromate, which we have here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some sodium hydroxide solution. So note, we've converted and we got dichromate ions in the test tube. What happens when we add sodium hydroxide? So I'm just going to get a pipette. And I'm going to dropwise add that to the dichromate solution. So what this is it's putting a stress on the solution, the equilibrium. So I'm going to give that a mix. And what has happened, it has gone back and has now produced a yellow colored solution. Why is that? Sodium hydroxide is a strong base and dissociates into hydroxide ions in solution. The chromate-dichromate equilibrium is pH dependent. As sodium hydroxide is added, the pH increases, making the solution more basic. And according to Chatelier's principle, the equilibration will shift to the chromate ions back to yellow. So the reaction went right and formed an orange color with the dichromate ions. And we've shifted that reaction back to the formation of chromate ions forming the yellow solution. We're reversing the equilibrium and producing chromate ions. So that's reaction 1. Now let's move on to reaction 2 with cobalt chloride reacting with hydrochloric acid. Okay, for the second reaction, I'm going to take my cobalt chloride solution that I made up earlier, and I'm going to add 3 mLs to 2 tubes. 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to add concentrated hydrochloric acid to each tube. So as you can see, cobalt chloride in solution is a pink color. And I just want you to note the color that we have here. It's a light pink color. We're going to see if there's any change that occurs when we add hydrochloric acid. So we're going to add 10 drops. Okay, so we got 10 drops. So do we see any change in color? Not yet. So with one tube, what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it in a flame, and I'm going to use heat to speed up the reaction. I'm adding a new stress to the reaction, which is heat. And I don't really want to boil it, so I'm just going to be very careful that I don't boil the solution. And already the pink is changing color, but it's very subtle. It's getting darker. And that's because when you add hydrochloric acid to cobalt ions, you get the formation of cobalt chloride complex called tetrachlorocobalt. And this is blue in nature, but because of there is still a high degree of cobalt ions in solution, you still get a bit of a pink color, but it is changing. Let me see if I can make it darker. Okay, it is darker than what the control. If you look at the 2 tubes, you can see that there is definitely a color reaction. A reaction has definitely occurred, albeit very subtle. So what happens now is I'm going to put this tube into an ice bath that I have here. So I'm going to now cool down that solution, and we'll see what happens when we do that. So let's see after that's been cooled down. Let's see if there's a notable color change. So as you can see, it's reverted back. So remember, this is our controlled solution. It's reverted back to the original color, the pink. So the reaction has shifted back to the original pink with the presence of just cobalt ions. Okay, that was a very basic, very simple demonstration of Le Chatelier's principle. There are varying factors that can affect equilibrium including concentration. If you increase the concentration of a reactant, the system will shift towards the products to consume the added reactant and restore equilibrium. Conversely, if the system you increase the concentration of the product, the system will shift towards the reactants to consume the added product. In temperature can also affect, like I demonstrated in this experiment by applying heat. If the reaction is exothermic, increasing the temperature will shift the equilibrium toward the reactant to absorb the added heat. If the reaction is endothermic, increasing the temperature will shift the equilibrium towards the products. Pressure also is a factor that can affect the equilibrium. If the pressure is increased, the equilibrium will shift towards the side with fewer gas molecules. If the pressure is decreased, the equilibrium will shift towards the side with more gas molecules. For more information of Le Chatelier's principle, please check out my Patreon page where I publish all the notes and procedure for each experiment. I give all the background notes to the experiment and go into more depth. And these you can get through membership on my Patreon page. Please hit the subscribe button. It helps me. It's perfectly free to subscribe, and it helps me continuing making these videos, producing more and more experiments, and even more complexity. Please hit the like button and the share button, and please don't forget to leave me a comment, anything you want to ask me, questions about what you learned in the video, any concerns, any ways of improving the channel, please do let me know. Feel free to send me an email. I like to hear from everyone who likes doing home experiments or just loves science in generally. Also, send me your photos and videos of you doing your home experiments. I love to share and build a home lab science community. Please join me next time for another experiment. Until then, keep on experimenting. Goodbye, everybody.